Most travelers think getting a Vietnam visa is simple. You fill out a form, upload a photo, pay the fee. Then a few days later, the visa arrives in your inbox. Easy, right? But here's something many travelers don't realize until it's too late. Every year, thousands of Vietnam eVisa applications get rejected. Not because travelers are banned, not because they're ineligible, and not because Vietnam is trying to make things difficult. In fact, most of the time the problem is something surprisingly small. A missing letter in your name, a single wrong number in your passport, or a photo that doesn't meet the official requirements. Tiny details like these can stop the entire application. And when that happens, the consequences can be expensive. Flights get canceled, hotels are wasted, travel plans fall apart before the trip even begins. And the frustrating part? Most travelers don't even realize they made a mistake until the rejection email arrives. But the good news is this. Once you know the most common errors, they're actually very easy to avoid. So in this video, we're going to reveal 9 Vietnam eVisa mistakes that get travelers rejected in 2026. And more importantly, how you can avoid every single one of them. Because one small detail can make the difference between boarding your flight or missing your trip entirely. And the first mistake often starts with something people think is the easiest part of the application: your photo. Mistake number 1. Uploading the wrong portrait photo. At first glance, the photo requirement seems simple. Just upload a portrait picture of yourself. But this is where many travelers make their very first mistake. The Vietnam eVisa system has surprisingly strict photo requirements, and if the image doesn't meet those standards, the application can be rejected almost immediately. Some of the most common problems include blurry images, shadows across the face, reflections from glasses, or photos that are cropped too tightly. Another common mistake is uploading a selfie that was taken from another photo. For example, travelers sometimes take a picture of their passport photo using their phone camera. The result usually looks fine to the human eye. But the immigration system often detects reflections, poor lighting, or image distortion. And when that happens, the application may be rejected. To avoid this problem, your portrait photo should have a plain background, clear lighting, and your full face visible. No shadows, no sunglasses, and no filters. It should look similar to a passport photo. It sounds simple, but thousands of travelers still get this wrong every year. And surprisingly, the next mistake happens even more often, because sometimes the problem isn't the photo, it's the name. Mistake number 2. Your name doesn't exactly match your passport. This mistake might sound obvious, but it's actually one of the most common reasons eVisa applications fail. When travelers fill out the application form, they often type their name the way they normally use it. Maybe they leave out their middle name, maybe they shorten it, or sometimes they accidentally reverse their first and last name. But the Vietnam immigration system doesn't check names the same way humans do. It compares the information on your application directly with the machine-readable zone on your passport. That's the coded line of text at the bottom of the passport page. And the system expects the information to match exactly. Even a small difference can cause a mismatch. One missing letter, one extra space, or one misplaced name, and suddenly the system treats it as incorrect information. When that happens, the application can be rejected automatically. Many travelers only realize this after their visa has already been denied. So when filling out the application, always copy your name exactly as it appears in the passport. No shortcuts, no changes, no missing names. Because one small difference can stop the entire application process. But here's something even more surprising. Sometimes the problem isn't the name at all, it's the passport itself. Mistake number 3, your passport doesn't meet the 6-month rule. Your passport might look perfectly valid, maybe it doesn't expire for several months, maybe it even lasts until the end of the year, but Vietnam immigration follows a strict international rule. Your passport must remain valid for at least 6 months beyond your planned entry date. If it expires sooner than that, the application can be rejected. Many travelers overlook this detail. They check the expiration date quickly and assume everything is fine. but immigration systems calculate validity based on the exact travel date you enter in the application. If the passport falls short of that 6-month window, the system may deny the visa automatically. And unfortunately, this often happens after the visa fee has already been paid. So before applying for a Vietnam eVisa, always check your passport carefully. Look at the expiration date, then count 6 months beyond the date you plan to arrive in Vietnam. If your passport doesn't meet that requirement, you may need to renew it first, because without that extra validity period, the application might not even get past the first review. But here's where things get even more frustrating. Sometimes everything is correct. The passport is valid, the name is accurate, the photo is clear, and the visa still gets rejected. All because of one tiny number. Mistake number 4, entering the wrong passport number. This mistake happens far more often than people think. When filling out the eVisa application, travelers need to enter their passport number exactly as it appears on the document. And that's where small typing errors can cause big problems. Some travelers accidentally miss a number. Others confuse letters and numbers that look similar. For example, the letter O can easily be mistaken for the number 0. Sometimes 2 digits get swapped. Or, an extra character gets typed without noticing. But the passport number is one of the most important pieces of information in the entire system. It's essentially your identity inside the immigration database. So if that number is incorrect, the system cannot match your application with your passport. In many cases, the result is a rejection. But in some rare situations, the visa might actually be approved with the wrong number. And that can create an even bigger problem, because when you arrive at immigration, the visa will no longer match your passport, which means the visa becomes invalid. And at that point, fixing the mistake can be extremely difficult. So when entering your passport number, double-check every single character. Then check it again before submitting the form, because one small number can decide whether your visa gets approved or rejected. But even when the passport details are perfect, another document mistake can still cause trouble. Mistake number 5, uploading a poor passport scan. A lot of travelers upload their passport scan quickly without thinking much about it. They just open the passport, take a photo with their phone, and upload it to the application. But the immigration system analyzes that image much more carefully than people expect. If the scan is unclear, incomplete, or poorly lit, the system may not be able to read the information correctly. Some of the most common issues include glare from camera flash, cropped passport edges, blurry text, or fingers covering parts of the page. Even small shadows across the passport number can create problems. The system needs to clearly see the entire passport information page. That includes the photo, the name, the passport number, and the machine-readable code at the bottom. If any of these elements are unclear, the application may be delayed or rejected. The safest way to avoid this problem is to take the photo in good lighting with the entire passport page visible. No shadows, no cropping, and no fingers touching the document. It may sound like a small detail, but clear documents can make the difference between fast approval and unexpected delays. And documents aren't the only place where mistakes happen. Sometimes the problem comes from something even simpler. Dates. Mistake number 6, entering the wrong travel dates. This mistake surprises many travelers because it happens so easily. Different countries use different date formats. In the United States, for example, dates are usually written as month, day, year. But many international forms use the day, month, year format instead. That difference can create confusion during the visa application. For instance, someone planning to arrive on May 11th might accidentally enter November 5th without realizing it. The numbers look similar, but the meaning is completely different. If the wrong date is entered, the visa may be approved for a different period than expected. And if you arrive in Vietnam before the approved entry date, immigration officers may refuse entry, which means the visa becomes useless for that trip. This is why it's important to double-check the exact travel dates before submitting the application. Look carefully at the format used in the form, and make sure the arrival date matches your real travel plans, because even a small date error can disrupt the entire journey. But surprisingly, the next mistake has nothing to do with the form itself. It happens because travelers wait too long. Mistake number 7. Applying too close to your flight. A lot of travelers just assume the Vietnam visa is processed instantly. But in reality, the standard processing time is usually about 3 to 5 working days. And if it's a busy travel season, it can sometimes take even longer. If someone applies only a few days before their flight, there's a real risk the visa won't be approved in time. And unfortunately, airlines will not allow passengers to board a flight to Vietnam without a valid visa. That means the trip may have to be postponed or even canceled entirely. To avoid this situation, most travel experts recommend applying for the eVisa at least 1 to 2 weeks before departure. That buffer allows time for processing and possible corrections if needed. Because honestly, rushing the application rarely ends well. And in some cases, rushing can even lead travelers to make another mistake. One that actually confuses the immigration system itself. Mistake number 8. Submitting multiple applications. When travelers get nervous about delays, they sometimes submit a second application. Then, maybe a third one, just to be safe. But this strategy often creates the opposite effect. When multiple applications are submitted using the same passport details, the immigration system may flag them as duplicates. And duplicate applications can cause confusion in the review process. In some cases, this leads to delays. In others, the system may reject the applications entirely. Instead of speeding things up, submitting multiple forms often slows everything down. The best approach is simple. Submit one accurate application and wait for the official result. If corrections are needed, they can usually be made later, because trying to outsmart the system rarely works. And the final mistake is something many travelers don't even realize they're doing. Mistake number 9. Applying while you're still inside Vietnam. The Vietnam eVisa system is really designed for travelers entering the country from abroad. But some travelers attempt to apply while they are still inside Vietnam. This sometimes happens during visa runs or short border trips. People leave the country briefly and try to submit the application immediately. But the system may still detect that the traveler recently entered Vietnam. And in many cases, applications submitted while someone is still inside the country are rejected, because the eVisa process assumes the applicant is outside Vietnam at the time of submission. To avoid this issue, travelers should apply before arriving in Vietnam or wait until they have clearly exited the country before starting a new application. It's a small detail that many people overlook, but it can easily cause unnecessary delays. If your Vietnam eVisa application gets rejected, it doesn't mean you're banned from visiting the country. In most situations, the rejection simply means there was a mistake in the application. Maybe a photo didn't meet the requirements. Maybe a passport number was entered incorrectly, or maybe a document wasn't clear enough for the system to verify. The good news is that these issues are usually easy to fix. Once the error is corrected, travelers can normally submit a new application. And when everything is entered correctly, approval often happens quickly, because the Vietnam visa process itself is actually quite straightforward. The challenge isn't the system, it's the small details. And as you've seen today, the difference between approval and rejection often comes down to just one tiny mistake. But now that you know what to look for, avoiding those mistakes becomes much easier. Which means your next application has a much better chance of being approved, and your trip to Vietnam can start exactly the way it should, with no surprises at the airport.